we need to challenge ourselves. We need to hang out with people that are going to um, support us in broadening our perspectives, whether that is, saying a thing that to encourage you to go deeper and question how the ways you think and think about your thinking and all these different things. So it's been a huge, it's played a huge role in my life for finding more freedom and like understanding who I am, what am I capable of, and amplifying my power for sure. Because there you will inevitably learn a lot about yourself through an experience that is completely outside the realm of normal, whether it's challenging you.
Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Life Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Smith, and if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another podcast. And if you love this podcast and you want some more tips and tricks on how to improve yourself, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are a ton of instructional videos there. You can find the links down below. However, before you go ahead and do that, because you are absolutely fantastic, I'd like you to stick around while I chat with my friend, Bill Robertson.
Wild Bill here, reporting for duty in this wonderful moment in time with my brother, Dapper Dude Kyle, which I am very grateful for the universe bringing us together. And thank you so much for being an inspiration and really bringing the energy and letting it flow. And yeah, just being someone that explores that and encourages that in oneself. That's exactly one of the main things I picked up from you when we had first connected at the Enlifted experience. And it was very nourishing. It was very regenerative. And it was a good reminder for me as we got to share that space down there in Richmond, Virginia.
Dude, oh man, I felt that in the heart. I felt that in the heart, like very
Breathe it in.
much. Thank you for the cue. I almost was a little bit too high and tight on that one. Now it's good and low and slow, baby. So, my friend, I like to start the podcast with asking my wonderful guests a very simple question. My friend, Bill, how is it that you impact the lives of the people around you and the people you wish to help?
That's a good question. And wow, there is infinite routes one could take in articulating what that is. So, on a daily basis, I'm doing my best to amplify my ability to lead myself and to go deeper into ruthless integrity, and what does that mean to me? Well, that's an inside job. Like I can put a, facade on the outside, and like make it look like things are all good, or like even in my relationship, if something's coming up that I feel would be worth discussing, yet, however, I'm avoiding it just from that initial discomfort that may come through or old abandonment wounds or whatever it may be. That's where the rubber meets the road in terms of like showing up for myself and practicing what I preach and, illuminating what it is that's fully alive within me for the sake of creating more connectedness in my partnership. Um, so aside from that, I'm answering the call of my own adventure, and that shows up in more ways than I can count. I mean, for example, just being here on this podcast, I'm still in the process of recalibrating myself to be someone who is comfortable with doing that. And I encourage people to meet their edge on a daily basis, whatever that is, because I feel like a lot of people are living lives of partiality and we all know how that goes and like succumbing to resistance and friction and that's where growth actually happens. That's where transformation occurs. It's really the only way that it can occur is when we notice that choice point. And this is a skill that we develop over time, and we choose the path that's going to lead us into the next iteration of ourselves. So aside from that, professionally, I'm a men's coach and I'm also a jewelry artist, which is what I've been doing primarily for the past 8 years, and something I've a skill I've been cultivating, and what's really led me down the path of self-realization as I've spent so much time with myself, working with my hands, building a business, reflecting, and listening to so many fucking awesome podcasts along the way, which essentially has led me into this position right now. So I could keep talking. I'll leave it at that for now.
Dude, that's awesome. I'm making some notes here, and I love that you said ruthless integrity, recalibrating the self, living life of partiality. Okay, so I want to go into, oh, let's go into ruthless integrity. That was
Sure.
just, when you said that,
Yeah.
it gave me a shiver
Merciless.
down. Yeah, it gave me a shiver down my spine. And I was like, bro,
This is actually,
yes.
yeah. And somebody, like, I just found out about this way of phrasing it, but it's the perfect way to put it. And like, that's the target I'm aiming for personally
Hmm,
as I move forward as a man in my relationships and what I'm creating and how I'm honest with myself and, all the different things.
that's beautiful. So, what does ruthless integrity mean to you?
Sure. So the way I would put that in words is doing the thing is right always when even though it's really fucking hard to do. Like I'll give an example of this and just a funny synchronistic moment between my partner Beth and I, which you just had on the podcast actually. Shout out Beth, the love of my life, my queen and my lady. So we were laying in bed the other night and there's a situation in my life where another female had was in like close proximity with in terms of what like her being a part of another creative pursuit that I'm in. And I noticed some attraction towards her. And, that was coming up for me, which is totally fine, right? Like this is a normal occurrence for men. It's completely natural we're hardwired to procreate. Of course, we see a pretty lady, like we're gonna feel some sort of magnetization, some sort of energy arise within. Um, it was more than usual though. Like I'm usually good at like acknowledging those things and like, okay, a beautiful woman, cool. I'm in a relationship and that's what I'm committed to. And besides that, it's really nothing more than some sort of energy showing up for me. So uh, later that night, I go over to Beth's and we're laying in the bed and she asks how my day was and I tell her about it. And I tell her about this new lady that we're working with and basically like I noticed like I felt my expression was off and weird, right? And it just and I'd also had a feeling that she knew, but I wasn't sure. I'm like, okay, well, I'll address this at some point, but I don't feel like addressing it now. I, due to my conditioning and programming, I felt uncomfortable with revealing the fact that I had an experience where I was feeling attracted towards another woman that I'm now, working with in another pursuit for whatever reason. So, like, me deciding not to do it was from a place of smallness and avoiding
Mm,
that uncomfortable experience of like stepping up for myself, which, there's intimacy. I'm exposing myself, I'm being vulnerable, there's some emotional risk involved. Um, and then we continue to talk, and she brings up this post that was made earlier by this guy, Jordan Bowditch, who talks about this exact same thing. Like, it was kind of like a clickbaity thing on the surface where it was like, I want to fuck every attractive woman that I see on the street. And then he goes on this long, conversation about how this is normal and this is something that needs to be addressed and a conversation to be had because we don't need more repressed, suppressed sexual energy in men, right? And this is like a common theme in relationships. Like insecurity comes up in, partner B, woman, for man being attracted to another girl when, of course, this is normal. So she brought that post up and then I was just like, oh, now I like have to talk about it because this is exactly what happened to me today. So right then and there, yeah, I brought it up in conversation and it was totally fine because we have conversations like this all the time. And like also on the topic of ruthless integrity, I have that experience of attraction towards this person. And whether I indulge in it or not is up to me. and I could indulge in it and nobody would ever know. But am I doing that? No, because I'm choosing integrity. I know what's going to create more connection in myself, what's in alignment with me, and what's going to create more connection in my relationship. And it's making that decision on the inside to do the thing which nobody would ever like even be aware of that I did, but knowing that it's good for me, instead of, going the
Mm.
other route. So that's one way of putting it, if that landed all right.
Dude, that's sweet. Yeah, I like that. So it's you're going 2 feet in, so it's definitely not partiality on that one. Hey, that's
Yeah,
cool. That's
exactly.
fantastic. So I think that I think you having mm, you behaving in alignment. Ooh.
Without
Uh,
external approval of it, or like external validation
mhm.
of it, like deciding to engage with the path of alignment, even though it's really hard, and especially when nobody's going to see it. And that's so important for us to like, um, I don't know. It's very easy to like stay in the dark about the things that occur inside and the things we indulge in mentally and with our thoughts. And if it's something that nobody would ever know, it's very easy to like remain complacent where you are within that paradigm of whatever the thing is.
Nice. That's awesome. So for the for your own development, for your own yeah, for your own development, how would you have previously
Mm.
experienced that? Or if it was a different timeline, how would past Bill have went through that sort of internal dialogue and that internal experience dealing with those kind of
Yeah.
vibes in the past? Yeah.
Phenomenal question. I would have that would have been something that I would have hung on to and like ruminated on, in terms of, because it's like a pleasurable experience to like be around this attractive female and like think about, how I engage with her, and how that makes me feel good. And I likely also would have went home and masturbated to this woman, right? That was a program of mine. That was a behavior process of mine, was like indulging in these sexual fantasies with other women. And not to say that that's inherently bad, but like for me and what I know creates the most expanded sense of love and connection within myself, and the most liberation and freedom. And especially as it pertains to my relationship, it's a matter of not doing those things, because that's going to fortify the connection that I share with Beth.
Hmm.
Mhm. So that's how that would have unfolded. And also, there probably would have been like shame around it too, and guilt for thinking this thing, because that's how the majority view these types of things. It's that, um it's not a good thing to have attraction towards another person when you're monogamously relating to another female or another man, which is just totally ludicrous. It's a totally ludicrous sentiment and notion to think that that's realistic to sustain. And like what manifests via the suppression of that energy is something to be recognized as well.
That's sweet. I really like the openness towards your own internal dialogue. I think
Hmm.
that that's a very powerful skill to develop. And by developing a much, or yeah, developing that internal relationship and understanding that you are not your feels and you are not your thoughts, and being able to understand the bigger picture rather than like
Hmm.
that one little detail that could be haunting you, and making peace with that detail rather than trying to push it down and trying to bury it, because it wouldn't go away. But if it's not confronted, or at least, yeah, if it's not brought within the self, and if it's pushed down, then, well, I think that for the most part we are domesticated into pushing things down, push, 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 push,
Yeah,
push,
dude.
push, push. And if you were talking to your younger self, let's say your younger self actually was your client and you were
Mm-hmm.
helping him out and you're like, bro, you're like wild, wild Bill. You gotta calm your titties. If you were chatting with him and he was coming to you and he's like, Bill, man, like I am really struggling with this. It's fill in the blanks of past experiences and stuff, shares with you that information. Bill then coming to you for help now, how would your present self help that past self?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage just to extend some mercy and some loving energy towards whatever it is creating like this dissonance within. And I would also encourage my younger self to ask themselves the question, like if your best friend or your even younger brother, someone you love so much that you would never deny for everything, how would you meet them in that situation? What comes up for you there? Like you wouldn't totally reject them or cast judgment over them or morally characterize their behavior in a less than savory way. So yeah, if I were that's an awesome question. That's a really fun way of framing things to like define things simply in terms of how we can meet ourselves when we do find the judgment coming up and the self-negation and all these different things. And man, that is such an ongoing process and practice. And I'm building that muscle on a daily basis in the ways that it shows up and continuing to practice that and expand my awareness around how I can be more merciful towards myself when these things do show up.
I like that. I like that you said merciful rather than meet yourself with grace. I think that there is a I think that grace is tossed often. Actually, I'm just thinking of this now since you said merciful. Now you just like made a nice little cognitive pivot in my mind where I'm like, oh, I'm going to use merciful more often than grace because I think it does have a little bit more power behind it. Because I don't think many folks can really define grace, but I think when, unless it's like moving gracefully,
Mm-hmm.
but when it comes to the behavior or the action of mercy and being merciful, I think that there is a lot more room for understanding in that particular case. I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's kind of my thought on that one, actually. I really like that. I like merciful more than graceful, dude. That's sweet. I'm going to write that down. Hmm.
Compassion for sure and forgiveness and not to like let yourself slide and bypass but to meet it with love and be like what can I learn from this situation so I can improve upon better for next time and recognizing our inherent humanness because I mean especially as someone who like I imagine you experience this and many people that listen, someone who's a high performer and always looking for the next level of expansion. It's very easy to not allow room and space to like make mistakes and to fumble the ball and to fall. And that's exhausting. That's plain and simple. It's very exhausting.
Yeah, it's like you're walking on ice that you believe is going to crack and fall apart. However, it's actually pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, that's
Absolutely.
cool. Ah, that's really sweet. So, Bill, my man, what is it that you find to be a common denominator with, generally speaking, because if you're helping out men, I'm going to ask you questions on that one. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the vision of helping men, what is it that you are inspiring them to? What's the outcome? What is it that you're inspiring them to pursue?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I want people to intentionally curate fun in their lives, especially men. We need more play. That is universally something that is incredibly nourishing for the nervous system, and a lot of the times men are getting lost in, all the various balls they have to juggle, and forgetting that they have the opportunity to play while that's all occurring. I mean, it doesn't have to be like a thing where you're setting aside 3 hours to go and play golf or disc golf or pickleball or whatever it may be. The way you interact with the cashier, the way you interact with your wife, bringing some levity into the situation. So, through like the men's meetups that we do, the virtual groups and the retreats we have, there's a big emphasis on that. And I feel men, I mean, I'll just speak from my own personal experience. Like anytime I've been in a personal development container where it was like too somber and too like dry and the facilitator didn't really do a good job of like bringing in some laughter at least every so often, I wasn't learning as well. I wasn't digesting the experience as well. I was more resistant to it, to showing up on the calls and intaking the information, all these different things. So that's one thing that I seek to like infuse into the people that I work with is to bring fun higher up on the hierarchy of values if it aligns, and if not, nonetheless, it's important to keep that like childlike essence alive and to keep that inner child within you supported, right? And then another piece is to yeah, for sure the words. And get more clear, illuminate more, your expand awareness around the words that we're using to define our experience and what is that inner dialogue like? How ruthless are you with yourself and how are the words playing into that level of mercilessness that like a lot of men are going through and not creating any sort of space for um love to be in there. And if they don't have awareness around their words and the words that are supporting that sort of energetic within them, yeah, more action, more disharmony, more dysfunction, more projection, all these different things. So getting clear on the words and helping people understand what architect language is and conflict language and those fundamental pillars of the enlifted work and how writing the things down that are occurring within yourself on a piece of paper, how illuminating that can be, creating space from your story and the inner dialogue to see it for what it is and to also see that we have the power to change it and to influence it very simply. Obviously, it's an ongoing process and an iterative practice, but as soon as we implement those basic tools in like how influential the language is, um, how it pretty much constructs our reality, then people are going to be a lot better off. And aside from that, we go into physical health, we go into how can we be more vulnerable with each other? How can we cultivate intimate relationships with other guys outside of our romantic partnerships? Because men, for the most part, tend to be over reliant on their romantic partners to get everything they need in terms of connecting, which creates a strain on the relationship and messes with the container of the romance they're wishing to curate within that partnership. So those are some of the main things that I hope and I am uh, encouraging men to step into more and teaching men how to do. And yeah, so that's what I got for
Nice. I like
you.
that. I like that quite a bit, my friend. Eventually I'll definitely wander on into one of your events, one of
I would
your
love that. If you want to come
retreats.
tomorrow night, we got a men's circle, 6:30 to 8:30 Central. I'll say that quick.
What's today? Monday? Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah, probably
You could think
doable.
about it. You could think about
Yeah,
it. You
fair
could think
enough.
about
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
exactly.
So you don't got to decide on the spot.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Man, that's pretty sweet. I very much so resonate with the part about uh I really like what you said about expanding the container of having that depth of relations with other fellas that
Hmm.
are uh I like to think of it as sharpening the edges. I think when there is that complementary competitiveness, I believe that the best of us is pulled out. And I found or find actually, I'll speak for myself on this one, where I was much more dependent on previous relationships with a significant other in order to create my own sense of self-worth. So I wasn't filling up my own heart cup. And I think of the heart as a cup where many expect the relationship to fill up that heart cup. However, when we are able to fill up our own heart cup, and what pours out over that heart is what everyone else gets to have a little bit of as well. Get to fill up a little bit of cups here and there, but it starts with the first cup. I definitely find that I, more so now than ever before, I really have a great male friendships than I have before, where there is the camaraderie aspect and not in a sense of a dogmatic sense where it's you're either with us or against us kind of idea, where it's a little bit more clicky. I've been noticing that, and I think it's a correlation, maybe not causation, but a correlation, and then it's been accelerating since, but a correlation with my development and the people around me, where it's the like-minded individuals that want to expand their perspective, that wants to have their perspective challenged, to not just want to be right or want to be accepted. Acceptance is not the focus, it's development. And as a side effect of that self-development and that self-actualization, we find that we have that acceptance as a side effect rather than having acceptance be the goal. And I think it is so important now, or ever. It's always been important, but I think I've just become more aware of how important it is because of the impact it's made on me, where it's not just going and hanging out and doing the same repetitive things, where it's not philosophizing, it's not having depth of conversation. And my buddy Jesse and I, we go for either runs, walks, or workouts in the morning, and it's early mornings, like 5 a.m.s. And that's how we started the day. And both of us chat about it often, where that is an unreal way to start the day because we're both doing something difficult and we're getting the neurological juices flowing. We're talking about these kind of things that are just like expanding our mind. And I think that when there is that camaraderie, that growth among fellas, it fosters so much like growth for sure, but the support that comes from that, from a tribe, it really fast tracks progress. And it's not a couple. This is another thought process too. Like, for example, a Facebook group that I'm in, and it has to do with men's mental health. And rather than talking about how they've accomplished or overcame something, it's more of a trauma and drama bonding experience. And no one's really challenging each other's beliefs or thoughts or philosophies. And I think that we have that desire to have that challenged, but I don't think many folks understand that it's something that, if it's something that you want, it's something that should be given as well, to initiate that deeper conversation. You can take that one. Dude, any insights on that one, my friend?
Well said. Oh my God, man. Yeah. I reflect on the relationships I share with other guys, which I feel so fortunate to have chosen to have built over the past few years and where the fuck I was before that, which was not in a good place. Falling apart at the seams mentally and emotionally, no connections of depth. I thought I was challenging myself, but ultimately I was choosing like the easy challenges, as far as, building my jewelry business, remaining in isolation, and common trap of placing my self-worth on my success there. So yeah, at that point I was completely void of these types of relationships with guys, and I didn't even know that that's what I was necessary for me, and like would be incredibly regenerative for my heart and soul to like fill up that cup, right? Like you mentioned. And I love coming together with other dudes doing something that's like physically activating, adventurous, whether it's like a cold plunge in the lake, which is something we did on Saturday with an awesome group of guys. We actually got a guy in there that had never been in cold water, this dude from Brazil, and he loved it. And he handled like a fucking champ, which was so cool. And then on top of that, yeah, having that meaningful conversation, getting those neural juices flowing like you were talking about. And that's something I reflect on that I want to incorporate more into my morning. It's just where I'm at in terms of like my physical position and my proximity to my friends that are into this shit in the area here, because I'm in like a smaller suburban town now. Oh, I have one friend um, that I could reach out to. That's something that is huge. Really getting to come together in that way and fill that cup, and get the momentum going in the right direction. Um, and yeah, expand those perspectives. The challenge is huge, and to like reflect on my experience there, and how net positive it is to be able to like healthfully, heartfully challenge another man, then also be open to the challenge as well. That's something that like is a process for me, and something I've been engaging with as I've been connecting with men to this degree for the past few years. But I grew up in a completely conflict avoidant family where like communication was not so much the strong suit, and we weren't, kind of led the way in terms of being encouraged to do these things and to like let's talk about what's happening within us, and where we have qualms with each other and stuff like that. So me personally, I find an incredible amount of value in terms of people challenging my thinking. And that's why I feel so grateful to be in the Enlifted tribe and have conversations like this with you, and other amazing individuals, and just to be in a position where like I can see someone challenging my perspective as an opportunity for growth versus like a threat to my nervous system, which there's still a little bit of that there. And that's why it's great too, because I'm recalibrating in the process and exposing myself to this healthy point of evolution that I am able to engage with and move forward with, and utilize to like become a stronger, more stable, regulated individual. And therefore, yeah, I'm able to impact and help more people, and be more loving, and all the things that are really important for moving the world in the direction that we seek.
Mm. Mm. What's the direction you seek, my friend?
We'll see. That the answer to that question is different every day. I want people to actually connect. I want people to know each other and to be known, and to recognize how they're being enslaved by screens and like junk food, and their stagnance physically, and all these different things that are removing them, and taking them out of their human nature, and away from what it actually feels like to be alive. And yeah, we're in a major connection deficit in society right now because of all these distractions, and this conditioning. And so like the world I seek is to bring people together in that way, and to encourage them to make decisions in which are going to lead them to a more expanded sense of love, and belonging within their communities, and more purpose, and more meaning, and more fun and play. And um yeah, that's what I got.
Nice. What can you recall a moment or two that has really impacted you, or where you recognized there was an emphasis on, I've got to do something?
Yeah. Like I have to make a change. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, like I spoke on it a little bit earlier and I could go more into depth on this. This was 2020, mid 2020, and addicted to cannabis and drinking and doing cocaine on a weekly basis, binge drinking, going to bars and um, I was taking good care of my body aside from that, like eating whole foods, and I was aware of like the check principles at this point, and I was a proponent of his work and listening to a lot of his podcasts and Aubrey Marcus and stuff like that. But largely I was in turmoil and there was just like a lot of inner catastrophe, really poor inner dialogue. I was fueling myself from hate and insecurity. And this was a result of so many different things that had occurred in my life and what I thought I was supposed to be doing, and just a lack of awareness, of course. And yeah, I was crying a lot and I didn't really know how to communicate what was going on for me. And I was scared to reach out and I largely felt misunderstood. I did have some good people around me, but I didn't take initiative on like doing the work of being vulnerable and opening up to these people to receive feedback and just be seen in where I was at. So largely I just like rejected myself completely for what was occurring, and I knew something needed to change. So an opportunity presented itself via Paul Chek's Instagram, his first Zen in the Garden, Stone Buddha's workshop the first one at his new property in Rainbow Heights, California. So I saw that. I'm like, I felt a huge calling to it, a huge surge of energy in my body to show up to that event. And I had made the declaration that if I make a sale in the next week, I'll go. I made a jewelry sale 2 days later, fucking sent it, got the ticket, and then I went out there and moved my feet in the direction which I like wasn't sure that it would change things, but I knew something needed to change. So that's why I did that. I was like, I need something needs to happen here. So I showed up there and I met all these incredible people, 5 or 6 of them, which I'm still friends with to today, and many of them which I still stay in touch with via social media. And through there, I continued to say yes and like open up that channel for like opportunities flowing into my life, versus saying no out of a place of being scared and choosing what is normal for me and what is comfortable. And that's, yeah, single-handedly been one of the most impactful means of like creating change in my life, is saying yes to things where there's, like Mark says, you're at the crossroads of puckered and excited. You're a little puckered, there's some stress there, your nervous system's like, are you sure we should do this? And the ego's like, are you sure, man, because this could happen. But you're also excited because there's going to be, you're stepping into the unknown, and there's going to be things there that are going to invite you to rise up to the occasion and going on that journey. So that was primary moment in my story where I really stepped up for myself, even being in a place of disempowerment. And from that point on, things have been continuing to change drastically. And that was a main pivot point, which initiated and established the awareness that these things are so important for me to do as a person. And yeah, once you know, you know. So I've just been continuing forward with that same sentiment and philosophy, and it's really truly brought a sense of like being alive into my life versus like, it's nice to be comfortable every so often. But on the other side, I know people in their lives want more meaning, want more excitement, want more adventure. So yeah, I value all those things, and those are some of my North Stars for decisions I make, and understanding how taking these leaps can really open up doors for us. And that's why I'm here, simply put.
Sweet. I really like that. Yeah, I'm asking a lot of, or I think it just kind of popped up. I didn't actually have it planned, but I find myself asking a lot of questions on your evolution, not
Mhm.
transformation, because transformation indicates that it's from one to the other and then it's done. But I think that evolution is a much more appropriate word for uh, the human existence, where
Yeah.
there's stagnancy and then there's evolution. And If we are not evolving and developing ourselves, then we find ourselves living the exact same day, the exact same point in time. That's
Mm-hmm.
unfulfilling. There's no joy. Our fellowships, the people that we make space for, are experiencing the same inner chaos or disorder or turmoil or resistance that we are, because what we experience in our surroundings is a reflection of our internal projections.
Yep.
I
Truth.
and
Truth.
and I think that it's so interesting because I like talking about how I've developed and I've changed. And I like talking to other people how they've developed and how they've changed. And there are some that are resistant to that change. And I have this theory, or this was a part of my kind of evolution, where until the point we consciously make the decision to show up for our inner child the way that we
Mm-hmm.
wish to show up, we will unconsciously and automatically show up for our inner child the way that our parents showed up for us, thus repeating the cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard something pretty neat from this. I forget his name, but he was talking about midlife crises. And I think that a midlife crisis is actually happening earlier and earlier and earlier. I'm just kind
Mm-hmm.
of observing it. And what he said was really interesting, where fellas will go, and he's talking specifically about men on this one, but fellas will go to school, they'll go do their work, they'll go do have the family, they'll have the house, they'll have the car, and they'll have decades where they've built up all of this stuff, and technically they've checked off all the boxes. They've hit all the points. I was told to get a job. I was told to go to university. I was told to get married. I was told to have kids. I was told to have the house. I was told to crush it in my career, because you can crush it and still be miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Crush it in my career. But then they reflect on it and they're like, shit, I didn't do anything for myself. I just did everything for everything and everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that, and it was just a theory that he was going with, but I observe it and I do agree with him. But then during a midlife crisis, many men will resort to the time that they feel they had the most control or the most power over their decisions. And that's when they are teenagers. So you'll see fellas that are continuing on. Now I think it's actually continuing on, where you have guys that are in their 20s, but they're behaving like they're 12, or fellas that are in their 50s going into retirement and they're having a midlife crisis because they're thinking, what about me? What is it? What is it that I was supposed to do? What is it that I want to do? And I know this is more so with athletics that I've heard this quote, but I think it applies to careers and uh, life just in general. But in the sports aspect, athletes will die twice in their life: once when they retire, and then once when they actually kick the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of the midlife crisis when we're uh, I don't think devolving is the right word, but it's resorting back to that teenage point in time where we do, where it's just living a rock star life because you wanted to be a rock star when you were a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
partying like a rock star, right? But that's not something that's sustaining. It's not something that's fulfilling. It's something that could create harm internally and externally. Where do you find the where do you find is a good starting point for someone that may be experiencing the dilemma of, I've done everything correct, but I do not feel a sense of accomplishment? That's a good question. Shit.
I mean, surround yourself with different people. Do something different. I mean, that would be a good place to start, right? Like most of us are in echo chambers of like similar belief systems and values and like those people that are caught. If you're caught in the matrix that long, simply put, you're surrounding yourself with other people who are also, totally disillusioned by what society has imposed upon them. Instead of like tuning into a true sense of what you want to create or what brings you joy. You are basing your behavior off of what others and what others have told you is what creates joy, right? And that's such I feel just blessed. I just feel lucky that I have ended up in a spot in the universe, in space and time where like other possibilities have been illuminated for me. I didn't choose to listen to Joe Rogan when I was like 18 or 19 or whatever. I somehow stumbled across one of his videos on YouTube, and that led me down a rabbit hole of understanding that I can choose for things to be differently aside from what all my other peers are doing, and deciding to go to like 4-year colleges and get a good job and like the typical milestone markers of like what success looks like in our society. Um yeah, I mean it's very easy to get caught up in the trap of like being successful according to someone else's standards, or yeah, all the things that have been imposed on us through media and through family, and how things used to work. Like obviously it's not fucking working for most people considering the state of affairs with where mainstream culture is at, and where people are at in terms of their vitality, and yeah, these midlife crises happening. So like I a really good place to start is find a men's group, go to a yoga studio. But the thing is, like when I think of this, if somebody's been like living this way for 50 plus years or whatever it may be, they may not have the awareness that this is the thing for them, or they wouldn't be open to that. So it's really hard to say what a good starting point would be. That's just what has worked for me, and what I see working for other people.
I like that. You had a post recently. Well, recently, like yeah, it was recently. Now I'm thinking of the date, but it's a really cool pic where I have it pulled in front of me too, where it looks like you're coaching a fella in a nice bath, and it looks majestic. Like the sun is shining behind you guys. There's a nice little reflection, and it says you have to use your caption. Men need a steady diet of meaningful adventure and rites of passage to be fulfilled. I love that, dude. I love that. And you have quite a bit more on it,
Hmm.
but it really resonated with me, the rites of passage aspect.
Hmm.
And for myself, I didn't really have. I would consider what I did in the world in 2016, the world's toughest mudder, as a rite of passage. However, I didn't recognize it as a rite of passage until then. But
Hmm.
what I've kind of recognized or articulated in my mind is we are a culture that does not have a rite of passage that clearly indicates boyhood to manhood.
Hmm.
And I believe, or at least the way I put it is the best incarnation of a rite of passage that we have is how many fireball shots can you handle when you're 18 years old, and how much can you just vomit the next day. The
For
harder the
real.
hangover is the next day, the better the rite of passage is. And I think that we're in this crazy cool time where we have the opportunity to have all the forms of rite of passages at our
Hmm.
disposal. And what started kind of getting me to think about this is there was this fella out of Australia. I believe he was a videographer or a documentary uh, director, and he was working in a cubicle. He was just hanging out, staring at his computer, like what you were talking about before, and he was questioning his competence and his utility and his ability to just be a man. He viewed himself still as a boy. And this one was a crazy one where he decided to do a video series where each episode was a different rite of passage from different cultures.
Oh,
And
wow.
so he would go to Africa, and there was one where he was in the circle pit and they had like sticks and they were just like whipping each other with sticks. There was another one where he climbed up this tree and he was getting like honey out of this hive and he was getting stung. Or no, he had to put his hand in there and then he had to like just, oh, it was an ant one, and he had to just get stung. And that was the rite of passage of that culture. And my favorite one that I think is the most badass one, it also lines up with one of my dream bucket list items that would be really freaking tough, but I think it'd be badass. But one of the rites of passages, and then I'll tell you what my bucket list item is. But one of the rites of passage is he was with there was a Mongolian tribe that was nomadic, and they would travel with elks and or caribou, one of the two. And the rite of passage was him riding horseback after training a falcon to hunt. And as he was going, he would let the falcon go, and it would go and hunt for him. And then another part of this rite of passage is they would celebrate by obviously bringing an elk in and eating it, but he would drink the blood fresh out of the cup.
You gotta.
Yeah,
When my first
obviously.
hunt, I'm definitely drinking the blood and taking a bite of the heart. 100%.
Oh, nice.
Respect.
What was that like? I have not
No, I
done it.
didn't. When I do have my first hunt, I'm
Fair
planning
enough.
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess me too. I might as well go along with it. Yeah.
Commit to it. Commit to it. It makes
Well, I
it
just
only makes
recorded it now, so I have to. Yeah. Do it for the
Abracadabra.
gram. Do it for the gram.
Make sure you have to record it or it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. But my bucket list item, and then I'll go back to the rites of passage part. But my bucket list item is to do horseback archery.
Oh yeah, dude.
And that's like 2 skills. I don't know how to ride a horse, and I'm familiar with archery. But the way that they actually do their archery is really freaking cool, where they actually time the gallop. So as the horse is going, they have the bow drawn, and when all 4 of the hoofs are off the ground, that's when they release the bow. So when they talk about snipers where they can regulate their heartbeat and they shoot in between beats, same idea, but you have this freaking giant animal in between your legs while you're just like going. So that's one of the things. But anyways, going back to the rites of passage part after that little tangent, you said in that one, rites of passage, indicating plural. So do you think a progressive amount or a progressively difficult rites of passage is, what are your thoughts on rites of passage? Let's start with that.
First and foremost, the bucket list objective of yours to man, that is going to be a powerful experience. That's going to make you feel some type of way. Like, I don't know what that's going to awaken within you. I'm excited to hear about it though. So I just wanted to reflect on that for a second. And as far as the rites of passage, man, it's essential. And I hear you. Definitely, I mean, when you think of rites of passage and what they currently are in mainstream American society, I don't know what's happening in other countries. If it's, well, there obviously are rites of passage in other countries. I'm thinking more like Europe and stuff like that, more similar to America. You look, you see, it's like college, you graduate college, you graduate high school, bar mitzvah, Holy Communion, whatever it is. And when I look at my whole life and how rites of passage have showed up, I didn't even recall this at first, but when the Holy Communion came out of my mouth. I actually got confirmed as a Catholic, and I was in complete resistance of it the whole time. Like I wasn't about like any of the principles that they were sharing in terms of the Bible reads and stuff like that. I was like totally in warrior mode and, rage against the machine, and just like I didn't even entertain it just for that reason. Like I was a rebel in that way. So I didn't really take anything from it in that regard, but we did do uh like for finalizing the confirmation, we did like a 1 day retreat, and we did all these exercises that crack me the fuck open and really expanded my awareness, which is cool to look back at that point. And it's similar to some of the things I'm doing now and leading guys through. One of the exercises being, cross the line if your dad was an alcoholic, or cross the line if you've lost a parent, things like that. And we're like eighth graders or seventh graders. So it was like bold shit, and like not things you're really talking about at that age. So that was wild because it really instilled a deeper sense of connection and relation to like my peers and other people, and encouraged me to be more compassionate and be like, oh, like these people are just like me. And there was a lot that came through with that. And there was another exercise we did, which my mom and my confirmation sponsor, they wrote me letters telling me how much they loved me. And like we were sitting in a circle and we opened up these letters, and I was like doing everything I could to choke back the tears. But I had never been impacted that way emotionally up to that point in my life. So, you know, that was something that really altered my consciousness and evolved it, and expanded me in different ways, connected me to parts of myself I'd never been connected to. And that's what I see rites of passage doing. And I do think that it's something that should be incorporated into one's life on a regular basis. Because yeah, just back to everything we were talking about earlier in the show, we need to challenge ourselves. We need to hang out with people that are going to um, support us in broadening our perspectives, whether that is, saying a thing that to encourage you to go deeper and question how the ways you think and think about your thinking and all these different things. So it's been a huge, it's played a huge role in my life for finding more freedom and like understanding who I am, what am I capable of, and amplifying my power for sure. Because there you will inevitably learn a lot about yourself through an experience that is completely outside the realm of normal. Well, whether it's challenging you physically, mentally, emotionally, and I mean, there's so many different ways to curate this sort of experience in your life. You could microdose it. It could be you're in a grocery store and you're someone that, isn't comfortable with starting an actual connecting conversation with the cashier. Ask them what the highlight of their day was. That's like a mini initiation process into a greater version of yourself, right? Because you're scared to do that thing, but you're meeting the resistance and friction, and you're doing it anyways because you recognize the value in it. And then like another one I did on my 29th birthday was I went on a 29-mile hike, which was a
Mm.
lot harder than I thought. And I mean, just to like be able to observe myself over the course of 15 and a half hours of walking through the winter, which was absolutely beautiful with my partner, and to like experience the ebbs and flows of connection and the things we worked through, and how we cultivated a positive experience for ourselves, and all the various points we chose to do that when we could have easily fallen into a place of disempowerment where we got pessimistic. We're like, you're like 15 miles in, you're like, well, my fucking shoes are completely soaked and like my legs are hurting really bad right now. Instead of like focusing on that, how can I focus on something else? So I learned a lot about my like how I shape my experience, which I was already aware of, but like it just goes so deep. So all these experiences, and there's so many more that I've intentionally, um, put myself in the arena of. Some of the most important experiences I've ever had. The men's retreats I've been to, going to the Enlifted experience, and no, if you compare it to like a traditional rite of passage, a little different. The way I see it, though, those are rites of passage for me, and it's meaningful adventure, and I'm coming out fundamentally different on the other side.
I think that, oh, damn, that last little part there where you're coming out differently on the other end. I think that's probably one of the that's the litmus test of a rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to use this frame or this metaphor, I think it is, as a mantra to assist me through what I perceived to be struggles. But realistically, at the time, they were just fantasies of struggle. They were perceived struggles, not actual struggles. And now I utilize it in the same sense as what you're saying is going through something that is a little bit that is difficult and that is leaving one incarnation behind in order to fulfill the next incarnation. And
Mm.
it is that struggle and pain are the blacksmith that forges us into the ultimate weapon.
Oh yeah, baby.
And I think that, and the story that I go through. So if I'm like doing something like what you went where it was the 29 miles, if I'm doing something where it's like trekking, or if I'm rucking and I have like 15, 30 pounds in my backpack or book bag, whatever people say nowadays, knapsack, I would go, and there was one that was during the summer. It was accidental, actually. I took a left instead of a right on a trail that I usually do, and I was curious. I'm like, okay, if I take a left, how long can I go along the river until I meet the next bridge to cross? So it was either I was going to retreat and go back the way that I knew there was a bridge, or I was just going to push forward. It went a lot farther than I thought, much further. I think I was gone for probably like 5, 6 hours, and I'm rucking, and I found a bunch of cool stuff. I actually found that there is an area in Edmonton here that actually has horses and stuff. So maybe I'll learn how to ride a horse there. Maybe. But the story, when I started really getting to the struggle, was we are like iron ore. We are in the ground. We are misshapen. We're just like a rock, right? We're just there. We're just a lump. And either by choice or by chance, we're going to be ripped from the ground. In the ground, we're sheltered, we're comfy, we're protected from the elements, from the things that we are fearful of, whether actually fearful or a perceived fear, a fantastical fear. But either by choice or by chance, the situation is going to change because life is not stagnant. So eventually, that iron ore is taken out of the ground, is dug up, or it is just sought. It's not sought after. It is, well, the coming out of the ground is sought after. Then it's taken to the melting pot. It's melted down. It's put into the shape of the sword. I'm going to use swords for this one because they're freaking cool. But it's put into the mold of the sword. It's heated up. It's melted down. It's put into the mold. It's taken out of the mold. It's heated up. It's beaten. It's cooled down. It's heated up again, beaten some more. Then it's sharpened. Then you put a couple other different parts of metal in there. There's going to be like other minerals to harden the sword. And eventually, over time, as we are beaten, cooled, heated, molded, eventually we become that ultimate weapon. We turn into our own form of Excalibur. And that's a story that I have on repeat when I, either by choice or by chance, whether I choose to turn left And then eventually I just go on this really long walk. That's the story that I have going through my mind is this is forging me into the ultimate weapon. This is forging me into the ultimate weapon. This is
That's
forging
beautiful.
me into the ultimate weapon. And that's been a mantra or a metaphor that has assisted me through persevering in a variety of either physical or mental endeavors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's been very, very it's been a heavy contributor to my desire for wanting to sharpen that blade more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that mantra is perfect for keeping your eyes on the prize and keeping your perspective in the right place instead of I mean, I imagine I can tell from the level of weapon that you've cultivated within yourself and that you exude. There's been so many times where you wanted to back down, and where you were at the precipice, and you rose above. And I imagine the words, back to the words, were very helpful in, um, helping you to push through to that next degree of yourself and that next iteration of like the weapon, the level of weapon you wish to call into your being and share with the world. That's super cool, man.
We uh what is a on the note of I suppose mantras, do you have something that you often speak to yourself over and over and over again that encourages you to progress?
It's always changing, and a lot of the times it's more of a generic, like, even, yeah, when I'm doing the things that I know are moving the needle in the right direction, also things that are challenging for me to do, I just remind myself I'm showing up, and I make progress because I show up. And just reminding of myself of the progress that I'm making helps me keep that momentum. Um, so yeah, just as simple as that. That's one of the phrases I illuminate in my mind, and that is helpful for me to calibrate my energy in the way where, I'm not focused on what's not going right. Because what we think about, we bring about, and it's so important to tune the reticular activating system in a way where, we're going to continue to see the things that are helpful to us instead of negating from our progress and getting in the way and breaking us down, and all these different things, because the mind does have a natural negativity bias just out of, purposes for survival, which is good. It's just we have to be aware of that, and the words are helpful in making sure that, um, we can maintain a perspective that feels good for us and energizing, and, um, yeah, isn't you know breaking us down essentially.
Mm, I like that, dude. I like that. Well, my friend, coming to the top of the hour.
Woo!
One question that I want to ask you before I go into the final two. Is there anything that has to be said that hasn't been said yet?
I'm grateful to be alive, and all I wish for other people is that they can come to a place where they feel the same way, where they can open their eyes in the morning and feel a sense of excitement for their life and recognize the blessings, and, also for them to acknowledge their inherent worthiness, and that I don't give a shit who you are, what you've done. This guy, when I say it like that, I think of Kai the hitchhiker. Hitchhiker. I don't know if you've seen the clips of him. We don't need to go. I don't even need to go any further into that. But he kind of says it like that. But I stand by these words. Like, I don't care what you've done, the most heinous acts, whatever it may be. You deserve love, and if you have objections to that, I suggest you study human behavior more and why people do things, and what sort of behaviors where they come from. So that's all I have to say.
Nice. So for the final two questions, I love them. Setting the context for this one, it's at the end of your days, you're on your deathbed, You're surrounded by all the people that you care for, all the people that you love. No content of yours exists. Instagram's gone. This podcast is gone. What piece of advice do you want to pass on to your loved ones?
It's a great question. As basic as it sounds, practice presence. If we're not here and our mind is elsewhere, then we're not actually able to digest our experience and cultivate memories. And so, yeah, I was hoping something more profound would come through, but that's all I got.
No, I think that's still fantastic, dude.
Yep.
It's a message, and sometimes, realistically, in the context of the scenario, it's not like anyone's gonna be like, bro, you're on your deathbed, then that's all you got to say.
Right. And just be yourself, be authentic, practice authenticity. Do your best to remove the layers that are getting in the way of being who you want to be, and be the permission slip for sure. Be the permission slip for other people to also, you know, fully express themselves. Cause yeah, there's enough masquerading in our society as there is already.
I like that. And the final question, the very best version of you is sitting next to you right now, the most actualized, the most transcendent Bill. What piece of advice does he have for this season for you, for this season of your life?
Keep going. Keep showing up for yourself and what you truly love to do, and following your excitement, and um yeah, everything's perfect. Stay positively focused, and uh keep taking the steps forward.
Nice. Well, folks, that's what I've got for you in today's episode. Where can people find you, Bill?
You can find me, my primary page and platform is at Yo Wild Bill. And if you want to check out my jewelry art, that would be at William Arthur Jewelry. Either or would be good to reach out to me on, and yeah, that's where we can connect and converse if you want to have a chat, or if anything stuck out in the episode to you, would love to expand on the conversation.
Nice. Well, folks, if you loved today's episode, please do me a favor right now. Take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram stories, tag me with my handle at Dapper Dude Kyle, along with at Yo Wild Bill. That is one of the ways that we grow. And until next time, keep up the kindness, and I hope your day treats you as good as you look.